present before me, but you are always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Because the exchanges between the Lord and his pure devotees are always supremely personal, both the Lord and his devotees express desires and individual will. In his childhood Leela, Krishna sometimes breaks Mother Yashoda's butter pot, and sometimes he allows her to catch him and bind him. In any case, the will of the Lord and the will of the devotees are always one interest, but they are sometimes expressed in the form of a loving conflict. Similarly, although Srila Prabhupada had promised his devotees that he would stay in the world and defy death, he still remained surrendered to the will of Krishna. Oh, Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 7th Canto, this chapter is chapter 3 entitled Hiranyakashipu's Plan to Become Immortal. It's text 24. Sa Tat Kichaka Valmikat 24. Because the other one started with Sa as well. Sa Nirikshambare Devam Sa Nirikshambare Devam Hangsa Vahan Upastitam Hangsa Vahan Upastitam Nanama Sirasa Bhumo Nanama Sirasa Bhumo Tad Darshana Mahotsava Tad Darshana Mahotsava Sanarikshambare Deva Hangsavaham Upastita Nanama Sirasa Bhumo Tadashana Mahotsava Sanarikshambare Deva Hangsavaham Upastitam Nanama Sirasa Bhumo Tadashana Mahotsava. Rikshiram Varam Devam Hangsavaham Upastitam Sirasa Bhumo Dashana Mahotsava Savarikshamare Deva Hangsavaham Upastitam Nama Sirasa Bhumo Dashana Mahotsava. Ladies, Aninakshanam Deva Pasitam Saha. He Hiranyakashipu Niriksha, seeing Ambare, in the sky, Devam, the supreme demigod, Hamsavaham, who rides a swan airplane, Pastitam, situated before him, the Lama with obeisances, Shirasa with his head, Bhuma on the ground, Tatdashana, I sing Lord Brahma, Maha Utsava, very much pleased. Translation: seeing Lord Brahma present before him in the sky, carried by his swan airplane, Hiranyakashipu was extremely pleased. He immediately fell flat with his head on the ground and began to express his obligation to the Lord. So responsibility. Seeing Lord Brahma present before him in the sky, carried by his swan airplane, Hiranyakashipu was extremely pleased. He immediately fell flat with his head on the ground and began to express his obligation to the Lord. Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:23-24, Yapya yanya devam bhakta yajanti sad shraddhayanvita tepi mam eva kaunteya yajantya viddhipurvakam aham isava yajnanam bhakta cha prabho eva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvenatas chavanti. Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods or Sinukanti is rarely meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. I am the only enjoyer and the only object of sacrifice. Those who do not recognize my true, transcendental nature fall down. In effect, Krishna is saying, persons in the worship of demigods are not very engaged in the worship of demigods, are not very intelligent, although such worship is indirectly offered to me. For example, when a man pours water on the leaves and branches of a tree without pouring water on the root, he does so without sufficient knowledge or without observing relative principles. The process of watering a tree to pour water on the root is to pour water on the root. Similarly, the process of rendering service to different parts of the body is to simply supply food to the stomach. The demigods are, so to speak, different officers and directors in the government of the Supreme Lord. One has to follow the laws made by the government, not by the officers or directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord only. That will automatically satisfy the different officers and directors of the Lord. The officers and directors are engaged as representatives of the government, and to offer some bribe to the officers and directors is illegal. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita as Avidi Purvakam. In other words, Krishna does not approve the unnecessary worship of the demigods. I'll break off and I'll come back. Om Jnana Tamananda Shaganandjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantika Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasani Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhischa kripasindubhye vacha paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, just one thing occurred to me, so before I forget it, I'll say it now and finish the rest. If you're worshipping the demigods, then you may think, well, at least I'm okay with the demigods. Okay, I'm not worshipping Krishna, but Krishna takes ages anyway to give you any kind of benediction. So if I do it with the demigods, it'll happen faster. So this could be a reasoning, a line of logic. And the problem with that is, if you don't have the parts of the body feeding the stomach, then everyone's in trouble, including the parts of the body. So if the officers and the directors are accepting sacrifices independently, then that is also illegal. So they're in trouble, you're in trouble, everyone's in trouble. So we have to follow the proper direction. Then the body gets nourished nicely, Krishna is satisfied, all the demigods are satisfied, and you're satisfied. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that there are many types of yogya performances recommended in the Vedic literature, but actually all of them are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yogya means Vishnu. In the third canto of Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that one should work only for satisfying yogya or Vishnu. Yogya tat kamano nitra. The perfectional form of human civilization, known as Vanishram is specifically meant for satisfying Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna says, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices, because I am the Supreme Master. However, less intelligent persons, without knowing this fact, worship demigods for temporary benefit. Of course, even that is quite good going these days, because most people don't even do that. Instead of them, they definitely don't know there's a God. And then if there is a God, they don't know it's Krishna. And then even if they do know that Krishna is there, they think he's one of the gods, and there's other demigods. And then if you don't even have that, then you look for somebody that can play football, and you worship him instead. Oh, he can kick a ball in the net. And what are you going to get for that? You'll sacrifice some money to watch him, and you won't get any benefit at all. So it's not even that. I mean, this is even within the Vedic culture, you can go astray, but they're not even on the path to go astray in the first place. They start off in the ditch and stay in the ditch. However, less intelligent persons, without knowing this fact, worship the demigods for temporary benefit. Therefore, they fall down to material existence and do not achieve the desired goal of life. If, however, anyone has any material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, although that is not pure devotion, and he will thus achieve the desired result. So, I'll come out. Tivrena, so with devotion, with intense devotion, approach, and even if you have some material thing that you want, Krishna's the best person. And he won't grudge you it. He may give you a planet, or some amazing benediction, and then, like Srila Prabhupada was, the devotees were listening to Srila Prabhupada in the next room, and the only way they could hear, they had to go into this cupboard. So they were all in the cupboard, Prabhupada talking to Alan Ginsberg, and Alan Ginsberg was saying, well, what will happen in the future? And Prabhupada says that it will become Kali Yuga when we know vegetation, and people will be less than animals. They'll be eating each other. And Alan Ginsberg says, Prabhupada, what will happen to your disciples? Prabhupada goes, my disciples? They will all have gone back to Godhead by then. And all the disciples are in the cupboard next door going, whoa! So, and the interesting thing about that story was, it ties in with, it was a memory by Rupanuga Prabhu, and he was saying that Srila Prabhupada said, half of my disciples will go to the heavenly planets, which I always thought meant half of his disciples will blow it. But then he said, from the heavenly planets, then they will go back to Godhead. So that's interesting that if you do have some material desire, although that Krishna's not happy with that, it's like, okay, send them to the heavenly planets and then send them back. He's not going to grudge you for it. Krishna's not a poor man. And he wants you to enjoy. That's why he came into the material world in the first place, because he does want you to enjoy. And he knows that you can't really enjoy in the heavenly planets. Of course, a heavenly planets compared to Lesmahego, it would seem like a lot of enjoyment for a long time. But in the grand scheme of things, at least philosophically, we can accept that it won't be anywhere near as good an enjoyment as enjoying with Krishna. So we have to try and become familiar with just how amazing it must be to be in the personal association of Krishna. And the more we become aware of that, the more we'll lose our attraction for going to the heavenly planets and being with the demigods, or at least being with their footballers on earth, or footballers' wives. Although Hiranyakashipu offered his obeisances unto Lord Brahma, he was strongly inimical toward Lord Vishnu. This is a symptom of an asura. Asuras worship the demigods as being separate from the Lord, not knowing that all the demigods are powerful because of being servants of the Lord. If the Supreme Lord were to withdraw the powers of the demigods would no longer be able to offer benedictions to their worshippers. The difference between a devotee and a non-devotee, or asura, is that a devotee knows that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everyone derives power from him. Without worshipping the demigods for particular powers, a devotee worships Lord Vishnu, knowing that if he desires a particular power, he can get that power while acting as Lord Vishnu's devotee. So, an interesting side benefit is if that you do know that Krishna is God, then you've ensured that you won't become a demon. But if you're not sure whether Krishna is God, but you like the idea of it, then you're still on thin ice. If you slip up, then you could end up thinking, well, Krishna's probably not God anyway, and I'm going to go and be a demon. So the onus is to get to know that Krishna is God as quickly as possible. And getting to know that Krishna is God doesn't mean just saying, I believe Krishna is God, I do believe in the Lord, I believe the Lord is balloon. I mean, it's nice, it's definitely a step in the right direction, but it won't safeguard you from becoming a demon, because that's just a superficial acceptance. To actually know, to actually realize, means that Krishna becomes real. And here's that verse, Akama Savakama Va Mokshikama Udaradi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. If you ever see the word Tivrena, then that means basically really going for it. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of material desires, free from material desires, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the Personality of Godhead. Even if a person has material desires, instead of worshipping the demigods, he should pray to the Supreme Lord, so that his connection with the Supreme Lord will be established, and he will be saved from becoming a demon or a non-devotee. In this regard, Srimad Madhvacharya gives the following quotation from the Brahma Tarka. The Brahma Tarka. Anyone read the Brahma Tarka lately? Become saved. So this is the thing, you see, Prabhupada's warning, you have to become saved from becoming a demon. So we're like a devotee in progress right now. And if we can come to the stage of a Majjhima Adhikari, then we can say that we firmly know that Krishna is God. And if you're not Majjhima Adhikari, then there's a chance you can be a demon. Ekastanaika karyatvad Vishnu pradam yatastata jivasya tad adinatvam na vinati kritam vacha. Since Vishnu is the Supreme, by worshipping Vishnu, one can fulfill all one's desires. There is no need to divert one's attention to any demigod. So the fact that Srila Prabhupada's stressing don't worship demigods so much, and at the same time knowing that most of his books are going to be distributed outside of India, where they don't know what a demigod is. The closest you get to a demigod in the West is a demijohn, and you use them for brewing beer. When I first heard about the demigods, I was thinking, are they like demijohns, Demijohn, demigods, semigods. It's an interesting word, isn't it? Demigods. I know semi. I could think semigods. So why would Prabhupada do that? Why is he stressing? We don't even know what a demigod is. We wouldn't know a demigod if we fell over one, right? We just think it was like a superhero from a Marvel comic. Oh, that one's got 4 arms, and that one's got 4 heads. It's like, what are your special powers? Oh, I'm in control of rain. Oh, he's better. He's in control of fire. What about him? He rides the sun. So why would Prabhupada be emphasizing so much demigod, demigod, demigod? Don't worship demigod. Yes, Arjuna. That's also like Ganesh. Yeah, one. Oh,
Equated with the demigods.
oh, yeah. Yeah, there was one devotee. He wasn't a very clean devotee, actually. No offense, but he was actually. I think we can go as far as to say he was on the smelly side of things, and he was trying to be a devotee for quite a while. Then he finally decided, no, I'm into Shiva. And the reason why I liked the idea of Shiva was he didn't have to worry about getting washed anymore, because he felt like that was part of the puja, to be a bit of a stinker. And so he shifted over onto Shiva instead. He said, no, I'm more into Shiva actually. He seems to fulfill my desires quicker than anybody else. So yeah, there's that. And then, you go to these devotee yoga clubs, and Ganesha's up there, and Shiva's there, and a few others, So you could see, that would creep in. Any other reasons why Srila Prabhupada is stressing no demigod worship, no demigod worship?
There's the concept amongst Mayavadis that the absolute is formless, impersonal, but then it takes these different forms that we can worship a demigod simply so we can fix our mind and have something easier to approach. And therefore Krishna is seen as just one of these other demigods. There's just and there's 5 levels, like first like Durga, then Ganesh, not Durga, Durga, Ganesh, and Surya, then Shiva, then Vishnu, and the absolute is ultimately beyond this, is formless.
Pancha is something that's called, right?
Panchaposma.
So that's another aspect as well. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada is philosophically undermining all these deviations. He's foreseeing that this could be potentially a problem. And any other reasons why Srila Prabhupada would stress so much that we don't succumb to demigod worship? Another one is, what are the demigods offering? They're offering longevity, get rid of your wrinkles, lose an inch off your waist, become a cool singer, or whatever it is, And so you may do that by getting a crystal, or a pot of pills, or go on some special diet, or go and hang out in Kerala, where all the herbs for Ayurvedic medicine grow. And in this way, again, become deviated, not so much directly by the demigods themselves per se, but by the benedictions that the demigods are offering, which could well be a distraction on the path of pure devotional service. Because Krishna will give us what we need, not what we want. What we want may well become a distraction. So in that way, okay, don't be interested in the demigods, and also don't be interested in the benedictions that demigods are offering, such as a more comfortable situation in the material world. Just learn the austerity of being satisfied with whatever you have, and if you can learn that austerity, then you will always be satisfied. Whereas if you don't, you'll only be satisfied once, which is reactive as opposed to being proactive. Proactive, I am satisfied, independent. If that person doesn't want to smile at me, no problem. If that person doesn't want to listen to me, no problem. I am independently happy and situated, irrespective of the environment. However, I will try to override elements which I feel which will be in some way or another obstructive to the spreading of Krishna consciousness. So that's proactive or reactive. So if we can learn these proactive qualities and be principle orientated, then on that principle, nothing will be able to get us unhappy. Nothing will upset us, nothing will disturb us. And we will become like the python. I'm just reading about the python right now. This is the 7th canto. And Prahlad's asking this devotee, well, how come you're quite chubby? And because he's already learning that the python the person lies like a python on the ground. And if something rolls by, he eats it, and if not, then he doesn't. He says, but you're quite chubby. And the devotee says, yes, the Lord is very kind. He's looking after me nicely. So It's interesting that the devotee is just he's prepared to just be satisfied with whatever comes his way, and because he's put himself in the hands of the Lord, then the Lord can fully take care of him, and then he makes sure that he's well fed, and that he's slept enough, and that he's happy and at one with the world around him. So we can do that. If we can shift into just be focusing on Krishna, and whatever Krishna wants to give me, whether he hands me roughly, or makes me broken-hearted, whatever he wants to do, that's fine. That's okay. I can accept that. So that's the training in Krishna consciousness to get to that stage, and then we can consider ourselves a true knower of Krishna as God, because we're depending on him all the time. We understand that it's ultimately up to him, it's ultimately in his hands, and we're satisfied with whatever it's going to be. You see, the fact that we've accepted that is in itself satisfying, independent of what the result happens to be after that. Whereas if we don't achieve that resolute determination to accept that this is Krishna's hand, then we'll always be dissatisfied. We have to learn to allow Krishna to take the initiative and to respond. Srila Prabhupada, he refers to Draupadi as being very malleable. That when things reversed, she accepted it silently. She just accepted, this is the way it's going to go. Everything looks great. Next minute doesn't look great. Then it looks great again. Then it doesn't look so great again. And she was just, and you can imagine Draupadi could have just said to Krishna, look, you knew this was going to happen. You knew Abhimanyu was going to be killed. You knew my sons were going to be beheaded. Why did you allow this to happen? But she was just malleable to whatever the Lord wanted, that this is some greater plan. And there was actually some greater plan. The reason why her 5 sons had to have that happen was because of something that happened in their previous lives, and they had to take birth for only a limited amount of time before they could go back to the moon god, which is where they belong, because they were his sons. So if you, due to your petty desires, interfere with what's going on, then you won't see the beautiful arrangement that Krishna is making for everybody. Oh, why did it happen like that? Yeah, to be able to do that, you have to stop whining and just like Prabhu Prana had a far-out thing said to him. He was in the meetings in Hungary, and he used to be the temple president for Radhadesh. And he was saying he's going through some difficulty right now with his family. And then he just smiled at Prabhu, and he goes, well, for whatever reason, Krishna must have wanted us to go through it. And he just accepted it, rather than, oh, well, Krishna's obviously got it wrong. Maybe he slept in that moment, Any questions or comments? Shishi Kodinitai Maya Poshashi Ki Jai, Shitosinath Maharaj Ki Jai, Shigirid Harilal Ki Jai, Shi Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. Yes, Pandita.
Thank you, Prabhu. You're talking about the need to be satisfied, that those who are worshipping the demigod, etc., because they're not satisfied with their current situation.
Yeah.
But then Prabhupada's emphasizing in the purport, I never quite understand this idea of like we're encouraged to go to Krishna with our material desires.
Yeah.
Like, is that sort of like it almost seems like it's like a trick thing. Like, because how can you actually approach Krishna with some? I don't quite understand how you could like authentically approach Krishna with some material desire, that you can have the desire to get free from the desire, but to actually approach them and say, I want this. This seems a little bit.
It sounds like you're a fanatical brahmachari.
So
No, yeah. Well, if you look through, I mean, we had a devotee that used to leave things up here, and he didn't like the idea. I used to say sometimes in class, you'd say, well, it seems like devotees can approach Krishna with material desires, like the lady with the basket of fruit, and she gets a basket of jewels. So she obviously wanted some opulence, and Krishna was fine with it. Didn't begrudge her that, With the flower, and also Siddharma Vipra, he actually, his wife was pushing him to go, and when he came back, he couldn't even recognize his wife or the house. He wasn't sure that this was not the right place, because they haven't got sat-navs in India, so it's not like taking left at the Fed bush. So he was thinking, is this actually the place? And then he realized, oh, Krishna's realized I can take all this opulence and it's not going to impede me at all. So he's going to fulfill all these different desires, even desires that I didn't want to acknowledge. Sometimes we do a thing in Krishna consciousness, especially when we're fanatical brahmacharis, it's called spiritual bypassing, which is, we see a little fluffy dog and we Maya, and then Krishna thinks, oh, he wants to cuddle a little fluffy animal, give him an alpaca. So Krishna's got our back, He knows what we want. We were thinking, I want to be renounced now, and I want to conquer sense gratification. When I joined at Chaitanya College, I'd left a pretty rundown house in Manchester. If my dad's watching, I know it wasn't that rundown. Compared to Chaitanya College, which was like a 5-story palace, and half the food I didn't know what an avocado was. That was just something you ignored when you were shopping with your mum, And aubergine, everything was like exotic. The smells, I'd never smelled incense like this before. My senses, I thought I was going to be renouncing now, and giving everything up and becoming a celibate monk. I was getting more sense gratification at Chaitanya College in '82 than I'd had in the last 19 years. I was inundated. The music, the sounds, the Sanskrit language, everything was exotic. The colors, the saffron, the beautiful palatial building, everything was just like, wow. I'd never dreamt of, Mangalati. The closest you got to a Mangalati suite was those things with a bit of fudge on the bottom, and a bit of chocolate on the top, and a bit of toffee. Not a Mars bar, but something like that. Suddenly there's these perfumes, like, God, this is like 100 Mars bars concentrated into one block. It's like, wow. Ghee, I didn't know what ghee was, and didn't know it existed. This fragrant, beautiful, you get rice and then they put ghee over the top. Like, wow, this is real. And I was thinking, this is how you do it. As long as you can get this, we had the Sunday feast. I was thinking, if you can get this once a week, it's no problem giving up all the petty sense gratification that I used to have before, because this is just such an inundation of the senses, and I'm so completely satisfied. And I was just listening. Srila Prabhu was saying the prasadam has to be so good for the devotees because they've given everything else up. So now this is their only shelter. So the prasadam has to be so good. The Prabhu in the study said, I understand that my disciples have come from a Western background, and just to live under a tree will be too difficult, so therefore I have to have some opulence to attract them. There has to be some opulence, otherwise why will they be attracted? If we have a beautiful building here, we have beautiful grounds, nicely maintained, no weeds, Jayananda Prabhu Ki Jai, and everything's clean and vibrant, then people will be attracted. It will be a better lifestyle. I think I prefer this lifestyle. These people have good relationships, they sleep peacefully at night, they have good food. This is great. That's how we'll attract people. And because we're a preaching movement, if we're going around all niggledy and all, haven't eaten the proper meal for the last 15 years, and looks like I'm just on death's door, and why would anyone want to take to that lifestyle? Why would they be attracted? It should be that they see that as we're getting older, that we're not afraid of dying, we're okay with everything. We're not in anxiety, we're peaceful, and our consciousness is deep. People are like, wow, that's the way to go. I want to be like that. That's what we have to do as a preaching movement. We have to show people this is what you're looking for. We have to walk the talk. We have to be the real deal. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I still this verse, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, whether you have material desires, a desire for liberation, and desires that engage intensely in devotional service. I just can't quite.
Well, another way of looking at it, Lord Brahman knew what was going to take place. He knew, but he was so impressed with Hiranyakashipu, with his Tivrena, with his intensity, and Dhruva as well. He was approaching with a material desire, Kanishta Adhikari. But because it was so intense, Krishna wanted to reciprocate. So you may water down your intensity and think, well, I'm not so intense in my devotion service, but at least I'm pure. That's all I want. Krishna's more interested in the intensity than the purity. You could be a laid-back Modi goodness Brahmin, or you could be an intense Kshatriya that wants a kingdom better than the universe. You're going to get Krishna's attention because of the intensity, rather than just like a kind of floppy, well, I'm not really intense, but at least I'm pure. It's not gonna work. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Krishna's. Lord Brahma is like a reflection of Krishna. So we see how it works. You're in charge of everything, and you see someone perform so much austerity like that, and he's totally out and out demon. What to speak of someone that wants to be a pure devotee, that wants to love Krishna, and has some material desire, And Krishna also knows once you get his darshan, like with Dhruva, he knew once Dhruva saw him that he wouldn't want the broken glass. And Krishna knows. He knows once you see him, once you get a full-blown darshan of Krishna, why would you be interested in anything else? How could it hold your attention? Anything here is temporary. So as soon as you come in contact with something that's unlimitedly eternal, your origin, your source, the very shelter of your existence, how could you possibly want anything else?
In the pastime of Dhruva, he has these material desires for the kingdom. Krishna knows that once he sees Lord Vishnu, that he's not going to have these desires anymore. But still, Krishna fulfills that desire.
Yeah.
Why? Because Dhruva no longer desires that. He desired it previously.
Yeah.
But then, if you're now becoming a pure devotee to the Lord, then having to manage a huge kingdom is probably a bit of a headache. You wouldn't even. So why does he?
Well, partly because he was the most qualified to do it, more qualified than anybody, and somebody had to do it. That post had to be occupied. So better it's a pure devotee that does it. Whatever a pure devotee does, he's daksha. He's expert. So, like Lord Brahma, he's Haridas Thakur. He's doing 192 rounds a day. Lord Chaitanya's dancing with him in his lap. But who's better? Who's the best one to be head of the Sampradayam in the universe? Otherwise, he would say, just come back now. But then the post is unoccupied, someone's going to occupy the post again. So, the pure devotee is prepared to do that. And also, it's a glorification of Krishna. But just see how magnanimous Krishna is. He has everything. There's nothing for him to give you. He says, I'm maintaining the entire, all the opulences of the universe he's maintaining with a tiny fragment of myself. So it's nothing to him, So he's showing how he's very big-hearted, he's very broad-minded, he's very accommodating, and he has so much love for the living entity that he can facilitate him, no problem. And in such a way that it doesn't impede his devotees' absorption and love for him. You can only do that if you're all cognizant. The demigods aren't, you see. So nobody can satisfy you and know you better than Krishna. He knows. And it's interesting as well, I was just reading this. Krishna enters the atom. Krishna is everything. When Srila Prabhupada says, when you say Krishna, that means Krishna and all his devotees, and his associates, and everything else that goes along with Krishna. And then Krishna enters every atom. So everything is in every atom. Which is, it's like it's infinite. The creation is infinite. And at the same time it's infinitely infinitesimal. It's all contained within and at him, and it's unlimitedly all-pervading and ever-increasing at the same time. So that's how powerful and how integrally aware of everything Krishna is. And so, of all the people you can have a relationship with, having a relationship with Krishna is the best. And he'll know that it's like a supreme chess player. They say that to be a good chess player, you have to be 4 moves ahead. All these really master chess players, they're 4 moves ahead. How many moves ahead is Krishna? He knows everything already. He already knows what's happened before it happens. So as soon as you put yourself in his care, then he will speed up the process of you turning back to him, remove the impediments, and establish your eternal relationship, your swarup with him. So you're in good hands.
So when we we look at ourselves and we acknowledge that we have material desires, still, as far as my understanding goes, which is very limited, we shouldn't directly ask Krishna to fulfill these desires. I feel shouldn't we ask to get free from the desire?
Well, say you have a desire to drive a really, really fast car. But the reason why you want to drive a really, really fast car is because of the exhilarating feeling of the wind blowing through your hair or across your seeker, and people watching you as you whiz past in your red Ferrari, and the recognition you're going to get. So Krishna looks at that's the remote desire, and then he looks deeper. What he really wants is he wants to be loved. And it's just coming out like that. It's just coming out in that kind of perverted way. If I was to show him love, he would experience the exhilarating feel of the wind on his seeker, jumping up and down in the kirtan, and leading the kirtan, and everybody like, wow. And he would get that same exhilaration of driving past in the Ferrari. But now he feels really satisfied. Because the driving the Ferrari was just a misplaced speculation of what he thought was going to satisfy this desire, this yearning for love, which is manifested in this way, or this perverted way. And Krishna takes it back to its original. No, what he really wants, he doesn't really want a car at all. What he really wants, he just wants to be thrilled and emotionally fulfilled in the exciting intensity of pure love. That's really what he wants. And it's just coming out in this kind of crooked, weird way. So he brings it back. No, this is really what you want. And then you're good with that because you're getting your desire, your emotions are being fulfilled. You're feeling this is really what you were created for. And then you don't have that hankering anymore. It's like you may be addicted to Mars bars. And then Krishna gives you a piece of burfi instead. And then the next time you look at a Mars bar, I'll take the burfi. So you have a material desire for a Mars bar only because you don't know how good burfi is. As soon as you've tasted burfi, then you're not interested anymore in the Mars bar. Unless it's frozen. If they're frozen, they're really good. Frozen Mars bar. Any other questions or comments? It's a good one, yeah, material desires, because what are they really? I mean, desires are covered over, and then the material, and desires are purified, and then the spiritual. So a material desire is a spiritual desire that's been covered over, that's all.
It does seem a little bit, there is some sort of trick going on there.
A trick. Oh yeah, Krishna's tricky. He's a tricky chap, you know. He's always doing tricky things. But that's his prerogative. He can do that because he's God, you know. So he does like funny little tricks sometimes, just because they amuse him. There's one book called Prabhupada is Coming, and it's full of the devotees' dreams. And this devotee was getting dropped. he was in a dream, and in the dream, Krishna kept dropping his face into the mud, and all the cowherd boys were with Krishna, and they were laughing, as though he was getting really annoyed. But Krishna really thought it was funny. She kept dropping him in the mud, face first in the mud. I can't remember what the conclusion was, but I remember he was upset at Krishna. Why are you making fun of me like this? But Krishna does things for his own enjoyment. And the devotee is happy to be used in whatever way. And the milk was trying to commit suicide because it wasn't going to get offered to Krishna. That's why she had to she put Krishna down to stop the milk boiling over. But that's why the reason the milk was boiling over. Everything is personal. So, and then the flowers were jumping out of Mother Yashoda's head because they didn't agree with, if you're going to keep carrying the stick, we don't want to get involved in this. So they all jumped out of her hair. So, in the spiritual world, everything is personal, and sometimes they may not want to go along with what Krishna is doing, or they may think he's being too tricky. So it's inconceivable to understand how things happen like that. There's a book actually called Little Blue Book of Krishna. It gives you a really nice insight into how Krishna is with his friends, and he's pulling a trick on one of the gopis. He says, a great rishi has just come to our house, and Mother Yashoda says that you've got the best butter in town. And the gopi is like, really? Yeah. Would you mind giving us some butter so we can take to this great rishi, because Mother Yashoda's run out. So she runs off to get not just one, she decides she'll give him 2 big things, and Krishna's laughing at his friend. He says, see, I didn't even have to steal it. This is, so he's telling her, spinning a yarn. So then she comes out with it and she says, just to make it even more special for the rishis, for this great rishi, I've put some sugar crystals in it. So when you eat it, it'll have a nice sweet taste, So Krishna, thank you very much. So she shuts the door, and all the boys go to run off. And Krishna says, no, it'll taste even better if we eat it on the doorstep, because it'll be more exciting that way. So they're there, and because of the sugar crystals, they're making such a row, crunching it. And the gopi's back in the house doing the housework, and she can hear this. She wonders where it is. She opens the door, and she sees them all sitting there, so she realizes she's been ripped off, So then she gets really angry. She says, where is this rishi? You lied to me. And all the boys stop chewing the ghee and the sugar when they say, like, oh my God, I'm in big trouble now, But one of them is really, really young. And he's so young, he's not even got any clothes on, and he's just carrying on, just chewing away, And Krishna says, look, here's a Nagababa. Here's a great rishi. We have a great rishi here, we're feeding him. And then she goes, well, I'm going to teach you a lesson. She goes back around the door to get a stick, and when she comes back, they all run off, But that's part of the fun, and she's loving it as well. She's relishing it as well. So that's what's going on in the spiritual world. Jai Yaskam Guru Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Bo.
Grace Adhoksaja Krishna Prabhu ki.
All of you ki jai.